You are looking at a device right now that can reach any human being on the planet in seconds. 8 billion people. One tap. Your great-grandmother could go her entire life without speaking to someone from the next town. You can video call someone in Tokyo before your coffee finishes brewing. We did it. We connected the world. And somehow, in the middle of all of it, loneliness became the fastest-growing health crisis on Earth. Not hunger, not war, not disease. Loneliness. The Surgeon General of the United States declared it a public health epidemic in 2023. The World Health Organization called it a global threat. Researchers started measuring it the way they measure cholesterol, because it turns out it kills you just as quietly. Something went very wrong. And the answer is not what you think it is. To understand what happened, you have to understand what loneliness actually is, because most people get this wrong. Loneliness is not about being alone. That is solitude. Solitude can be chosen. Solitude can be nourishing. Monks live in solitude. Writers disappear into it for months. Being alone is a physical state. Loneliness is something else entirely. It is a signal, a biological alarm, the same system that tells you you're hungry or cold, firing to tell you something essential is missing. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent 20 years studying loneliness at the University of Chicago. He discovered something that changed how science thinks about human connection. Loneliness, he found, is not an emotion. It is a survival mechanism. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in small groups. Being separated from the group meant death, predators, exposure, starvation. Your brain evolved to treat social disconnection as a physical threat, the same threat as an open wound or a stopped heartbeat. When you feel lonely, your brain enters a state of hypervigilance. Threat detection spikes. You become more likely to interpret neutral faces as hostile, more likely to expect rejection, more likely to pull back from the very connections that would resolve the signal. Loneliness protects itself. That is the trap. And then we built something that the trap was perfectly designed to exploit. In 2004, a college student in a dorm room launched a website. Within 10 years, 2 billion people had accounts. Within 20, it had reshaped the architecture of human social life more thoroughly than anything since the printing press. The platforms that followed made the same promise: connection, community, never being alone. They delivered something different. In 2017, the first wave of data started arriving. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania took 143 college students and split them into two groups. One group used social media normally. The other group limited use to 30 minutes a day. After 3 weeks, the limited group showed significantly lower levels of loneliness and depression, not marginally lower, significantly. The tool built for connection was making people more lonely. And the mechanism was not mysterious. Psychologist Sherry Turkle at MIT spent years interviewing people about their relationship with technology. What she found was a phrase that kept appearing in different forms across thousands of conversations. People said they felt alone together, present in a room full of people, invisible inside it. Here is what the platforms actually deliver: not conversation, performance, not presence, broadcast. You do not connect with someone on social media. You publish a version of yourself and wait for a response. The other person publishes a version of themselves. 2 performances, passing in an algorithm. Cacioppo's research identified what genuine connection actually requires. It requires what he called felt security, the experience of being known, accepted, and valued without performing anything. The knowledge that if you fell apart right now, someone would stay. That cannot be delivered in a notification. It cannot be accumulated through likes. It requires time. Repeated vulnerability, the specific texture of another person's physical presence, their voice in real air, their face reacting in real time, the particular way they laugh or go quiet. Your nervous system knows the difference. It has always known. The platform cannot fool it. And the lonelier you get, the more the platform offers its substitute, and the worse the substitute feels, and the more you reach for it. The trap closes. The data on what loneliness does to the body is genuinely hard to read. Chronic loneliness increases the risk of premature death by 26%. It raises the risk of heart disease by 29%, stroke by 32%. It impairs sleep, accelerates cognitive decline, and suppresses immune function. Cacioppo compared it directly to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes. Just from the absence of genuine human connection, we put warning labels on cigarettes. We built entire public health infrastructure around smoking. We never built anything around this. Because loneliness is invisible. It does not show up in a blood test. It does not produce a symptom that sends you to a doctor. It produces a feeling that modern culture has decided is a personal failure. Something wrong with you? Not something wrong with the world you were handed. That is not an accident. Something specific happened around 2012. Psychologist Jean Twenge has been tracking generational data on mental health for decades. In her research, 2012 is when the lines move. Rates of loneliness, depression, and anxiety among teenagers begin a climb that has not stopped. 2012 is when smartphone ownership crossed 50% in the United States. It is when social media moved from something you checked on a computer to something that lived in your pocket, available every waking second. It is when the notification became the primary unit of social interaction for an entire generation growing up. Those teenagers are adults now, and the data follows them. But here is what almost no one reporting this story mentions. The loneliness crisis did not start with smartphones. Robert Putnam, a political scientist at Harvard, published a book in 2000 called Bowling Alone. He had spent years tracking what he called social capital, the density of genuine human connection in American life. Clubs, civic organizations, neighborhood associations, religious communities, bowling leagues, all of it had been declining since the 1960s, steadily, quietly, for 40 years before the iPhone existed. The car made us commute alone. The suburb moved us away from density and proximity. The television pulled us indoors. Work became longer and more precarious. Third places. The coffee shops, the town squares, the communal spaces that were neither home nor work, began disappearing from the landscape of daily life. By the time the smartphone arrived, the infrastructure of human connection had already been hollowing out for 2 generations. The phone did not cause the epidemic. It arrived into a population already lonely, offered the most sophisticated substitute ever built, and accelerated everything. Cacioppo died in 2018. He spent his final years not just documenting loneliness, but studying its reversal. His findings on what actually works are simple enough to sound obvious, and specific enough to be difficult. Genuine connection requires frequency, regularity. The same people repeatedly, over time, not intensity of feeling. Consistency of presence. It requires physical proximity, not always, but often enough that your nervous system registers another body in the same space, breathing the same air. It requires conversations that go somewhere uncomfortable, where something real is at stake, where you could be misunderstood, and you say it anyway, and the other person stays. None of this is available on a platform. All of it is available in a life arranged to make room for it. The question is, what we have arranged our lives around instead. There is a study that appears in almost every paper on loneliness, and it never stops being striking. Researchers asked people at the end of their lives what they regretted most. Not one person said they wished they had spent more time online. Not one person named a platform, a follower count. A post that performed well. They named people, specific people, conversations they had avoided, presence they had withheld, time they had spent somewhere else when someone needed them to simply be there. The most connected world in history. And at the end of it, what people reach for is the same thing humans have always reached for. Someone who knows them. Someone who stayed. You already know who that is for you. The question is when you last made time for them, and whether you will before it is too late to matter.